Hello everybody and welcome to the first ever movie trivia Schmoedown recap on my channel. My name is Jimmy, you can call me Joker. This guy right here is my right hand man, my partner in crime, Alex Splash.
How you doing?
And we just got done watching the title match for the singles league between Dan Murrell and Paul Oyama, and let me tell you, it was a fantastic match and there is a lot to talk about. It should be obvious that this is a recap, but just in case, there are spoilers if you haven't seen it. So if you haven't, go ahead, go watch the match on the Schmo's Nose channel.
Yeah, correct? It's now the Movie Trivia Schmoedown channel.
Fantastic. So you can watch that, then come back and watch the recap. We don't want to spoil this for you guys. So starting off, we had Dan Murrell. He was 12-4 with 8 KOs. That is a scary number when you look at that.
16 matches, won half of them by knockout, and now he sits at either third or fourth matches all time played, or played all time, I guess you would say that way. JTE, Josh Makuga, and Roka are ahead of him. Okay. So, but Makuga and JTE are tied. It's weird, but the point being, Dan is a veteran with a lot of knockouts under his belt.
100%. But you also cannot ignore the fact that going into this, Paul Oyama was 4-0 with 1 KO. Sure, it's not as many, but it's still a flawless track record.
He was 4-0.
You really got to look at that.
He's played some good people, but he had never played somebody like arguably what most people consider the greatest player of all time. But man, did it really shake out?
It was a very close game, very good game too.
The match worth the hype. Paul earned that name primetime before this, and he really stepped up to it. Man, this was fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had a great time. In the singles league, they have a more broad movie spectrum to look at. I'm more of a inner geekdom guy myself. That's something that I'm really good. I thrive in that. But so when it comes to singles division or even the team divisions, when they have a more broad spectrum of movies, they'll be like, all right, you got Matt Damon. I'd be like, I don't know.
And don't play nice. No, you're a Star Wars guy. You are Star Wars League as far as any fan can be Star Wars League. So, yeah, expanding outward, your point still stays the same, but, come on.
But the point I was trying to make was, watching it, even though I knew maybe, 2 or 3 of the answers to the actual questions, it was still, really entertaining to watch, and it really kept my attention the whole time. I was just like, ooh, who's going to win, Because when Dan missed that first question in the first round, and Paul got the lead for the most of it, I was like, ooh, that 1 point could cost him. If it's going to be as close as we think it is, that 1 point could cost him this entire match. And then, of course, he ended up finishing out round 1 tied 7-7. But I was just the whole time, I was like, he could get somewhere with this.
Yeah, it was definitely an opening I didn't see coming. If you're thinking about who's going to miss first, I think 90% of the people were probably expecting, Dan's the veteran, Paul's the one under these kind of pressures for the first time. He's probably going to be the first person to slip up, but the kid remains solid.
And that's what I think, one of the most, intense things that happened throughout was in the wheel round, round 2, just because of, we thought they were going to spin away from some of the choices, because Paul got...
Oyama spun on to Quentin Tarantino.
Tarantino, you thought he was going to spin away from that.
I thought strategically it was the better move. I've watched all of Paul's matches. I know he's strong across the board, but I thought there were categories that he could be stronger in, and I think overall I was right.
Yeah, and he killed it, though.
He did manage to go through. Oops, hit the mic. But Dan lands a steal. That could have been, you're talking about things that determine the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Those things like that, that's where you got to think if this was a more composed competitor, if this was somebody who has more exposure to these pressures, do you try to spin? Or is Paul just really good at Tarantino and had a slip up? Do we just not know that Tarantino is actually one of his strengths? Arguably, I'd say all of the categories are one of his strengths, but everyone has the things that they're really good at.
He's also just not afraid of any of the rounds, especially going into the speed round. That's something that I'm always just how can you just sit there and be calm enough to just be I know the answer every time I just hit that buzzer? But Oyama took no mercy in that round and just plowed through the whole thing.
Yeah, it came away 4-1, and right after stumbling, in the betting round, he went big. He went for the knockout move, which you see Dan, he played a little more laid back, a little more measured in that round. Maybe there's also another example of that veteran kind of experience in the Schmoedown, but no, Paul misses the question, loses his, was it 3 points? I believe it was.
It was 2 points.
Was it 2? And then, Dan bet 1. That's right.
Dan bet 1, so it ended up going from 15 to 13 to 16 to 11. And I thought at that point, I was like, Dan might take this and run with it.
It looked like Dan was moving into knockout range, but yeah, like you said,
the speed round, he was just absolutely not. I'm staying in this.
4-1, he closes that distance back down to 2 points, and then Man, that championship round is something else.
That round 5 was an extremely intense, and I've got some notes on that too because Dan got his 2-point question, missed his 3rd, and his 5. And the part that I thought was most intense about that you brought up is because 2 of the questions he got in the final round were animated movie Pixar questions, which I guess is that not one of his strengths, really?
Well, he said it even in the postgame. He was talking to Emma Fyfe and said, Pixar was one of my 2 weaknesses that I had on the board that I wanted to tackle before this game. And it just happened to be the one that I didn't go with.
Yeah, and that's the part I thought was most intense about it because, thinking that Pixar's not my strongest, but he gets the first Pixar question, which was General Zurg is the arch nemesis of what Pixar character? And he's like, Buzz Lightyear. I was like, wow, that's something you're not good at. You find the question and you know the answer. You think you're in the clear. And then we get to the 3-point question and it's another Pixar question. Or I'm sorry, the 5-point question. And it's what Pixar film uses the voice talents of Brad Garrett and Janine Garofalo. And I'm like, ooh, another Pixar question. That's a little bit of a harder question too when you're talking about the actors in the movie as instead of like characters themselves. And I don't remember the answer he gave, but it ended up being Ratatouille, and I was like, that's it. That's what
I believe he said Monsters Inc. Was that his 3 or his 5? I think it was his 3, right?
You're right. It was the 3-point question because his 5 was a biopic question.
Yeah, the last
and he said I'm not going to drag it out. I don't know the answer, and he gave it to Paul, leading with that insane. And you gotta feel that's just got to be a hard loss, like by 1 point, 19-20.
That is hard, but Dan said like straight up he did just lose it. It was just questions that he didn't know.
And that's what I loved about that post interview. Who's just like, I just simply didn't know it. No excuse other than that. And I was like, that is the most respectful answer I think you can give sometimes.
Yeah, I mean he handled it well, but looking back on the match, that 2-point question comes up. You hear Pixar films. Immediately I turn to you and it's like, this is not Dan's game.
Yeah.
It's not. But what I think saves him is what is more of Dan's game. 90s 80s to 90s culture, he's done well in those categories. Toy Story.
Yeah.
Come on. Like
everyone knows Toy Story.
Everyone got through Toy Story. It wasn't like when you were picking out the list of animated films that you weren't going to watch and it was down to like Leap on Netflix and Toy Story. You're like, I don't know. I think I'll skip one. No, you're going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's no way. And so, yeah, you get Zurg. That I think is more comfortable territory. Ratatouille, on the other hand,
not as much.
Yeah, you're not looking at that movie like, oh, you know what, I want to go watch that one that doesn't have Tom Hanks.
Exactly. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, sometimes, that stuff kind of happens. You just end up with those questions you just don't know.
Yeah, it's just the way it felt. Shout out to Paul. I mean, in his 2-point question,
they said youngest person to win the singles division. He's 22.
He's 22. Like in that last round, he handled his question, knocked it out, knew the answer was Ratatouille in the 3-pointer, and I think if I caught that correctly at the end of the game, he knew the 5-point question as well. Yeah. I think he mouthed the answer or something to Dan afterwards. I don't remember exactly. It was moving really quickly, but all in all, like the kid stood his ground.
Yeah.
He looked Dan right in his face. 22 years old and just knocked it down.
Took the belt and said, thank you.
It's an opportunity that you don't really see happen that often in the Schmoedown. We just saw Kevin Smets versus Kalinowski. Somebody who's newer to the Schmoedown, whether age, throw that out, but experience-wise, he gets to the 5-pointer. Yep. He has the opportunity to sink it and blows it by just that much. And those are the kind of things that you thought might affect this match. And ultimately, it ends up being a known weakness of Dan that he has kind of skirted around for a little while, just not catching up on, ends up being the one.
But it did not take away from the match as a whole when you look at it, because there's the big title matches, especially like tomorrow where we got Kalinowski and
Rachel.
One of those big matches. You don't want it to be an absolute blowout because that's almost like no fun to watch when you're watching these title matches and these really big matches in general. When it's really close, neck and neck, it could go either way. That's when you get the most excitement out of this. If it was like a 30-point lead, you'd be like, okay, what's the point in those just continuing? Like, why are we here? So it's one of those things where it's like Dan put up a great fight throughout the match, but just looking back on it, knowing that it was only a 1-point lead, but it was still just great knowing that he could keep up neck and neck with Paul throughout the entire match and not just like get blown out of the water early game.
Dan is the old guard in the Schmoedown. He is the old faithful. You can put him in against anybody. Doesn't really matter who it is. He's either going to win or stay beside them the entire time.
Absolutely.
He's the only 3-time champion for a reason. The guy gets it done in the Schmoedown but it takes a known weakness to sink him. His worst game since Andrew Guy. His return back to the Schmoedown, his warm-up game. And that's what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, hats off to Dan.
For sure. He killed it.
He's the GOAT. There's no question about it. There's no one... Mike is trying to creep up on that status. Rachel's making her way forward. Roka is in the conversation. There's a lot of people fighting for it, but facts are facts, and Dan Murrell, he goes out as the best right now if he was to stop. Sam Levine was in the conversation. The first two belts. No, Sam, I love you. Go back to acting. All right, man. This is Dan's game.
We love Sam Levine.
Just saying. You can't disrespect the man.
But speaking of Sam Levine, we had a nice little post-credit scene there at the end of the match with Sam Levine and Robert Byron Burnett.
And that was pretty incredible. I will say, I like this direction that we're shaping up with RMB taking over, and he's a madman. And it's a pleasure watching him work, is all I'll say.
For sure, absolutely. Because he knows. He knows everything. He's been there for so long.
Yeah, it's like, when you want somebody to come in and shake it up, you had Mike Kalinowski come in with Corruption and the Anarchy tournament last year. Now, let's just put the wackiest guy, other than maybe Tom Dagnino. Maybe Kaiser. Top 3, you could argue. But still, like, you take Robert just like, hey, man, congrats. You're the commissioner for 30 days.
Yeah, and, you have 30 days. It's an illusion.
Yeah, and Emma5 had a great comment about, I guess she's demoted now. Like, I love where the stories are going. But speaking of stories, we do have some interesting kind of post-fact stuff to discuss in that, like you said, Mike is up against Rachel. So the championship landscape could be changing even further just as early as tomorrow. And we've got some Manager of the Year stuff going on. Kaiser has put Smets up against Kalinowski. Comes very close to being that number 1 contender for Rachel's belt. Like we said, missed it by a hair. Now he's got Oyama, singles champion. The Dungeon quickly making a stake at saying, hey, best faction in the league right now. Smets dominating in Inner Geekdom, has one trip up. He could still manage to put that case even further. He could easily take it off of Rachel or Mike, depending on how this all shakes out. We're really looking at where we thought Roxy might have had Manager of the Year locked up. Here they come. The Dungeon is running, so
yeah, and I was rooting for Roxy too, but I mean, she's got some competition like riding up on her fast now.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs right now, for sure.
Very much so, very much so.
Tom Dagnino probably excluded himself entirely. He's had 2 losses under his belt now since becoming the manager of the Horsemen. There's like 8 of them now. I don't know.
I think they have Tom Dagnino there just to say they have Tom Dagnino.
Yeah, he accidentally got there. I'm not going to lie.
He's just like, they just said I was going to be the manager for the day. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll be manager for your day.
And so the next things that we have after San Diego, we've got the New York live event in August. I think that's August 31st. That will start the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament. So whoever wins out of this next group of competitors, whether it's Murrell challenging again, whether it's Bibiani with his number 1 contendership clause that he's got from the free-for-all, Ben Bateman, I think, is up for a shot. Ethan Irwin's still in the mix. There's a lot of people, and
definitely
particularly with the Ultimate Schmoedown, maybe there's like a 3-way at New York for the belt, and then you still have a blank playing field to start for the Ultimate Schmoedown. It's all going to be insane. The Schmoedown is in an exciting place. Harloff called this the magic season. I'm starting to see why things are getting insane here.
Yeah, because you're just getting like the best matches of like here and there. It's not just a lot of like blowouts or anything like that. It's everyone that wants this belt. They want the title. They're going to go in for it with everything they got, with all the knowledge that they have at right there, like that, just in the grasp of their hand, and they're just plowing through this competition. And it's just the most stacked it's ever been, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more Little League contention. We're getting serious people in every category.
They want this to be a real thing, so they're just going for it the best they can.
And they've been tracking forward and like really making this serious. And
the
whole production team, Harloff, then the storyboard, whoever's all involved there, Chris Galiski elevating the question writing. Everything is getting better. Everything's growing. The contenders are getting more serious, and the child gloves are off.
And I couldn't be more happy to see where it's going, to be honest. Like, this is like one of the most fun things ever to happen.
One of the best things to happen to anyone who loves film, anyone who loves nerd culture. And we've got some of the greatest names here too.
Absolutely.
So no matter who's at the top currently, there's always, a spectacle going on about, who is the best. Is it Dan? Is it Sam? Is it... at the end of the day, you've got some of the best in the business providing incredible content, and we're just happy to be here to watch it.
For sure, 1,000%. I couldn't have said it better. Like, it's just, watching it is just one of the most amazing things, and seeing everyone just interact as they do, even if it's scripted fights off scene or stuff like that, it's just fun to watch regardless, because, you know, it's something that we can also really relate to. It's not like, you know, WWE was like, oh, I relate to that. I once threw my friend through a ladder.
I once jumped off a balcony and killed my friend.
Absolutely. No.
I mean, bringing spectacle down to this level to where it can be appreciated by all, it takes a lot, and we do appreciate it. We love watching, and we love supporting, whether it's outside of the game, whether it's inside. That being said, go Rachel. Sorry, Mike.
I'm voting for Rachel, too. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah,
go Crusher.
I congratulated Mike on Twitter after he beat Kevin, but that's because it's been the comeback story of a lifetime, and I do like the guy outside of the game.
Yeah.
But as far as tomorrow goes, see ya, bud.
Crusher all day, every day.
Absolutely.
But that's going to close it up here for our recap of the Singles League title match. It was absolutely insane. GG's to both Dan Murrell and Paul Oyama. You guys were incredible. And, you know, Paul, you got a good win out of this one, and I hope you just keep going with it. If you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and be back tomorrow, because we will have a recap of the Inner Geekdom match happening tomorrow between our most favorite people in the world, Rachel Cushing and...
I mean, I wouldn't say Mike is my most favorite. I was just Mike Kalinowski.
They're both amazing, and I both think they're gonna like take this to the very end and then some. I'm seeing some overtime sudden death. Hopefully, we'll see.
I mean, it was literally one letter that separated the championship last time.
Ninko and the Ninka, yeah.
Everyone has one. You know, you've got your Bespins, you've got your Ninkas, you've got whatever. The list goes on.
Regardless, if you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments down below if you would like to see more of the movie trivia Schmoedown recaps, or if you'd like to see anything else. But until then, and until the next match shows up, we will see you guys next time.